It's wild that this is the world that we've inherited. And now we get to decide what type of ancestors we want to be. We get to decide what legacy we want to leave. Beyond just the Facebook, beyond just the podcast, beyond just this moment right here, right now. What do we want our children and our grandchildren to know about what we stood for and how we stood up for that? And if that's not the greatest spiritual practice, then I don't know what is.
You're listening to the Almost 30 podcast, a lifestyle podcast hosted by Krista Williams and Lindsey Simsick.
Tune in for a new episode every Tuesday to hear our honest conversations about topics like wellness, entrepreneurship, spirituality, and self-development with guests who are really smart, really inspirational,
and really fucking funny. It's real, it's raw, and it's unfiltered.
Inspired by our transition from our 20s to our 30s, we realized it's so much more than that. Our mission is to provide you with the tools, guidance, and motivation to help you navigate any transitions in your life and propel your personal growth.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Almost 30 podcast.
Here we go. You ready?
Ready. Are you ready, guys?
Ready? Okay. You were never a cheerleader. Okay.
I don't look like a cheerleader.
I mean, we kind of do.
Yeah, that's so fucking true.
I don't know. I've never been a cheerleader ever in my life.
I think I wanted to be. Maybe. I don't know. I think I had the thought, like, maybe I should want this, but I never wanted it. No hate, dude. Cheerleading's hard as
I just
fuck.
didn't have it at my school.
You didn't?
Mm-mm. No school that I went to had it.
Did you guys have sports?
Yeah, but it was LOL.
Oh, because cheerleaders cheer for men normally, and you only have women.
Yeah. Well, I was all girls 7 through 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting though, because it's like technically by general standards, who would they cheer for?
Exactly.
But cheerleading's not really about that.
It'd be funny if they like shipped us to the all boys school to cheer for them. So inappropriate.
Why can't cheerleaders cheer for girls?
Exactly. Because then we'd be, I don't know.
Big old lesbian cheerleaders.
Well, that's what immature middle schoolers and high schoolers would say. That's why it's like not done. But anyway, yeah, literally our athletic games would be just sparse as hell unless we were like winning, which was really meaning like winning in like a conference or something like that. But I mean, we played tennis. There'd be like 1-0. Just chilling.
Just sleeping. She's like napping.
How are you guys? How's everyone doing? How are you feeling?
Sending you love and light.
Can't believe it's halfway through August. Can't believe we're basically maybe over halfway through the tour, except we keep adding stops. So that's not really true. But I don't know.
Man, it's almost 2018's over.
Covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. First time in Seattle recently.
Yeah.
Cool city. Really beautiful.
Cool city. I wish we got to explore more, to be honest. We didn't get to go like into nature, which I hear is the bee's knees over there. But it was beautiful and everyone was so kind. The food was awesome. And our event freaking rocked. Rocked.
The ride was really good too.
Yeah, the ride was a lot of fun. We did a cycle ride and everyone showed up. I think maybe like 10 out of 62 people knew about the podcast.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, but we discussed this, like it's a good thing. So like, oh,
it's better.
It's better.
That they don't know.
Because we're spreading the word. So yeah, we do soul cycle rides in pretty much every city that we go to. So look out for that if you are coming to our tour. What did you love about Seattle?
The ice cream.
I know. We went to Frankie and Joe's in Seattle. It's a plant-based ice cream. So fucking good. We went 2 nights in a row. And we decided that
plant-based ice cream amazing. It was so good.
So good. I think it's a cashew and coconut cream base. And the flavs. It's so funny because Justin was like not having it, but I didn't know. Like you knew that he probably didn't like it, but he's like, yeah, I'll have the California Cabin, which is like pretty much pine.
Yeah, some of the flavors are kind of crazy, but
it was so good. It was so good.
Highly recommend if you're in Seattle. And then the event on Saturday at the Riveter was beautiful. The space was stunning.
Natalie Miles just blew everyone away. It was pretty incredible. She talked a lot about, following your intuition and connecting to your spirit guides. And then she gave people messages for about an hour and a half. And it was the craziest experience. That one.
Which one?
In the beginning,
The rock one?
Oh, that one was good too.
Rock and roll?
That one was really good too.
That was a good way to start. The rock and roll one was crazy.
Yeah, so there was a girl in the front row. I wish I remembered her name. I'm so sorry. But Natalie was hearing rock and roll music. And
she's like, they're really rocking out.
Yeah, really rocking out. Like, you need to be listening or playing rock music more. And she's like, oh my God. She's like, I teach toddlers all day. And like, I am such a rocker. Like, in my soul. That's my outlet. Like, that is my outlet. So it was just crazy. And
she's like, I love rock music so much.
She was so passionate. I loved her.
She was so passionate.
And then the plant one.
Plant one was crazy.
What was the plant one?
The plant one was Natalie walks up and she goes to this girl who's here with her friends. She's like, do you have plants? And the girl's like, yes, I love plants. And her friends are like, she loves plants. She has so many plants. She is like, do you have like a lot at your house? She's like, yeah. She's like, do you have a big one at the top of the stairs on the right? She's like, yeah. She's like, is he healthy? She's like, kind of. She's like, but you've had to like trim his leaves a lot. And she's like, yeah. And then basically the plant ended up saying that he wanted her to talk to him more.
And stop trimming the leaves. He's like, could you stop trimming my leaves?
I don't know if he said, or
something about it.
There was he either liked it. Oh no, he liked it because then it meant that there was more of him.
Oh, that's right.
He had like an ego.
He didn't like something.
He had like big dick energy.
Yeah. He's totally a fiddly fig.
Yeah. He was like, and his name was Charlie. That was basically it.
Yeah. She's like, does he have you said, does he have a name?
Yeah. But like, then there was just a bunch of readings that were like really powerful. And then some were deep, some were not, but the messages were crazy. So it was really, really fun.
Really fun.
Yeah. And me and Lindsay were just like following Natalie around trying to get messages, but like read about it. So
we definitely got some messages. She's so sweet.
What'd you get? I got the house shopping thing, looking for furniture.
That was a good one. She turned to me. She's like, what is this party this weekend? And I was like, oh. So my best friend, this comes out after that, but my best friend is getting married. And she goes, oh my gosh, this is like the most fun. Like, it's high fashion. It's fun. You're like, she just like described it and it was just so sweet.
So cool.
And I told Maddie about it and he started crying. He's like, I know it's going to be great.
Oh my God.
The week of your wedding, tell me people, if you've gotten married, do you just cry out of happiness? Because you're just anticipating like the best day ever. So yeah, I'm excited about that. But
Justin was in Seattle too, which was so fun.
So fun. I'm so glad he came.
Put him to work.
So glad he came.
So glad he came. The penny came to Seattle.
And he ate
really
vegan
fun.
ice cream 2 nights in a row and didn't go across the street and get pizza like he wanted to.
I know he wanted to, but he didn't.
No, it was great. I can't wait. I can't wait for us to like bring our babes on tour. Cool.
He was playing video games on his phone the whole time.
It's okay. Hey.
You know.
Hey.
What do I got to do?
You got to pick your battles is what you got to do.
Sexuality.
Oh yeah. That girl that came up to you. So we got messages from a listener of ours at the Seattle event. She came up to me. I didn't know she came up to you. She came up to me and said,
so cool. I loved her.
She's really sweet.
I loved that.
She has a beautiful name. It's like, it starts with an H.
There's a crew of 5 girls that met recently in Seattle and they were hanging out all the time. And we talked for a long time after and they were so fun and cool. I'm so grateful for that conversation with them. She was like, I have a message for you. You need to sing more. And I was like, I know. We talked a lot about that. I was like, yeah, I know. It was a good message though. It's literally, I guess the third time comes in 3s. Someone else, 2 other people have told you that? Actually, Natalie was one of them in my private reading a while ago. Oh, yeah. What did she say to you? Embrace my sexuality.
All right.
Okay. I feel like a douchebag sometimes because it's like I'm blonde and I have big tits and I'm tall, so it's like it's obvious, right? Obvious for most.
I wonder what it means though. Like I'm not saying like
I totally.
Do you know what I mean?
I actually completely understand what she's saying. Actually, 100%. So it's just there's an easing into it. There's like a comfort with it. You know what I mean? Totally. There's like a fluidity to it. I'm just completely joking, but I completely understand what she means.
It's always fun when people kind of give you these messages.
Yeah, I love it.
You're like, whoa.
I love it. Welcomed.
Yeah. All right, guys. So
this one is...
It's great. It was a conversation that we had wanted to have with Thais, with our community. It's just kind of the beginning. And
yeah, I would just would note, so this conversation is a little bit different than some of our other conversations. We're talking about white privilege. We're talking about how can we be more supportive of other races, other communities? How can we embrace diversity in our everyday? How can we provide a safe space for this sort of conversation? So it's kind of intense. I actually had like a moment during it where I was pretty affected. I'm just really feeling like I'm feeling the push and I'm feeling the pull to continue to evolve this podcast and continue to grow it and grow the people that are incorporated into our conversations and our roster and our community. And that's just something that's been really important to me. So having this conversation out loud was something that was, really needed.
Yeah, it was needed. And I guess also I walked away from the conversation just feeling, we've always been very open and honest with our community and been ourselves. And the truth is that we're learning throughout this whole process of creating this community and hopefully just, feeding this something greater than, what we initially thought this would be. And so we're going to make mistakes and we are going to ask a lot of questions and ask for help. And so, I that's kind of what I walked away with, where it's just being really kind to ourselves as we do this work and as we just continue the conversation. So we're really grateful to Thais Sky for coming on and starting this conversation. We can't wait to talk to you about this and anything else you guys want to talk about. We are always open to any conversation and always active in the group. So, yeah.
Yep. And I guess this is the last thing I'll say, that I am not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. So putting this out there, putting this kind of conversation out there, asking for openness from our listeners, from our community, as we get this going.
Yeah.
Just growing Almost 30 Nation in the best way we know how and supporting you guys in the best way that we know how and the best way that you guys have told us we should. So really just like Lindsey said, learning along the way.
Yeah. We love you guys. Enjoy this episode. Join our secret Facebook group if you haven't already. We've gotten 1,000 new members in the last 20 days. So it's
less than that.
Yeah. It's growing like crazy. So happy to have you in there. Subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. Means
Join our
the world.
Newsletter.
Means the world to us. Join our newsletter. You can do that on almost30podcast.com, and we'll see you on tour, almost30podcast.com/tour. Enjoy this one. This episode is brought to you by PooPourri. This must be a dream. This brand I've been using for such a long time now. My mom gave it to me as an apartment gift when I moved in by myself, and she knew I was dating someone. Thanks, Mom. And she thought this would, take away any fear I had around pooping around boys. Well, she was right. This gives you confidence to poop wherever you are. I would take it with you on the go. Make sure you have it in every bathroom. This is a blend of beautiful essential oils that creates a barrier on the surface of your toilet bowl water, trapping the odor under the surface. Does that make sense? So you spray it on before you go, 3 to 5 sprays, let's say, across the water surface. You just go number 2 as usual, and then the barrier just traps in the smell of the poo. It's the truth. We love this brand. If you haven't already, listen to our episode with founder Susie Batiz. She is such an expander for us. We love her so much. She's doing so much good in the world and is elevating a brand that is fueled by people who are super conscious. And this simple product has changed lives. They also have a new product out right now, which is the Assistant. It's the automatic toilet deodorizer. It automatically spritzes your toilet with the wave of your hand. How cool. Such a good idea. She's just bevy with good ideas. So visit PooPourri.com, POOPOURRI.com. You can use our code almost30 for 15% off. And just so you know, my favorite PooPourri scent, get this, it's a special one. It's the Woo of Poo scent. So it has ginger, neroli, and magic. It's delicious. So let us know what your favorite scent is. You can also get the PooPourri for deodorizing. Can't say it. Deodorizing your shoes, which I use on the regular. PooPourri.com. Use our code almost30 for 15% off your first order. This episode is also brought to you by Moellens. This is a health and wellness brand that is committed to bringing you CBD products that are clean and free of any artificial ingredients. I love and trust this brand, and it is so effective. Amy Duncan started this brand after her husband's malignant brain tumor returned, and he started to use and incorporate the CBD products into his wellness routine as he was being treated. Amy has a background in running a genetics laboratory and just being in the medical space for quite some time. And the lab that she was working in started to talk about testing cannabis. So she did a deep dive and knows this plant like no one else. And these products just show it. And I am so proud to have Moellens as a sponsor on the podcast. Right now, I am loving the One for All topical CBD wellness oil. It is so good. So this is like a delicious blend of CBD, gardenia, moringa, tonka bean, and sea buckthorn. Whoa, I cannot pronounce a damn thing. You can put this all over your entire face, body. It brings you energy and brings the skin to this like glow. If you're experiencing kind of dull, lifeless skin, just watch what this all over CBD body oil can do. It is free of parabens, silicones, sulfates, phthalates, artificial colors, fragrances, and formaldehyde releasing preservatives because, you know, you don't want to be covered in synthetic chemicals, do ya? So for our listeners, you can go to moellens.com, peruse this website. Okay, it is gorgeous. The products are unbelievable. Give it a try. Let us know what you think. Please message us if you want our suggestions. We have them all. Moellens.com. You can use our code almost30 for 10% off your first purchase. So Moellens, MOWELLENS.com. Use our code almost30 for 10% off.
Before we even start, I just have to say, your Facebook group, like it comes up on my feed and I don't have the capacity to be in there, but I am just honoring the amazing community you two have. I mean, people are really showing up in there. It feels really like a really beautiful, safe space for women. And I think that that is so rare and so essential. So I'm just honoring you both for cultivating that space. I know it's not easy.
Yeah. And thank you for being a part of the group. And also when you can, you know, I know you are so busy, but...
Oh, I'm so busy. I'm just like, so busy.
But you have been vocal and like, I think always just kind of like, you know, supporting and enlightening people in the group. So, you know, we really appreciate that.
The group is so special. It's like... It's really crazy. And it's like a little nerve wracking when we grow. I'm like, how we have like 5,000 or so now, maybe 5,500. And I'm like, how could we have 30,000 of them? You know what I mean? Like thinking about growth, I'm like I do get a little nervous. I'm like, how could we have, this many women that are so open and loving on a grander scale.
Yeah.
It's always like there could be something that like gets lost in the mix, or just a little bit scary to think about, like the size right now. I'm like, every day when I check just posts, just randomly seeing what's going on, I'm like, okay, everything's fine. Everything's good. There's never been anything that's been negative, or everything is with such love and curiosity. And openness. But, we obviously do want to grow. We want it to expand. We want it to evolve. And we want to like use it as sort of like a compass for us in our evolution. And it has been that way so far.
Yeah.
So the conversations that we're having have provided an opportunity for Lindsey and I to evolve, for us to evolve together as a community. And I'm like excited to see, what happens in the future.
Yeah. I know that growth always brings unexpected things. So it's just all about expanding your container, as you expand your container, then it will come, it will happen.
Yeah.
I'm excited for both of you.
Thank you. And us, you. Can you bring us up to speed? What's going on with Tay Sky?
Oh,
and
my
introduce
goodness.
yourself for those of our listeners that haven't listened to your first episode, which I'd be surprised if they haven't.
It was
Exactly.
it was hot fire flame.
Yeah,
I do
truly.
not understand why
we
you were
still
doing
get
this.
messages
so
about it. No, I'm not
fun.
joking.
It was
I'm not
so
joking.
fun. It was so fun.
So I'm Tay Sky. I live here in LA. I am a women's life coach, and I'm currently in grad school to be a psychotherapist. Not sure what that route will look like yet, but I do a lot of work with women around the worthiness wound and this sense of debilitating inadequacy that I think so many of us carry. And so I do one-on-one coaching, I do groups, I do all the things, but my work has really been, how can we stay with ourselves? How can we stay with ourselves when shit hits the fan? How can we not leave? And so I've been really looking at all the ways that we do leave and all the ways that we can start to come back after we've left.
What does leaving mean?
Yeah, great question. I would say leaving is self-annihilating. Leaving is the judgment, the blame, the guilt, the shame. Leaving is the numbing. Leaving is the over-exercising because we're so scared to be with our pain. Leaving is addiction to food, addiction to alcohol, addiction, any form of addiction. We're all addicted. We're addicted to our shitty thoughts. We're addicted to shitty people. We're addicted, and we let that lead our lives. And so those are the ways that we leave. We leave the pain. Because we all have pain. We all have suffering. I have always been attracted to Buddhism and the Four Noble Truths, like the 4 truths that this enlightened guy came up with. Like out of all of the things in the world he could have came up with, like the one of the first ones is life is suffering. And come on, it's so critical that we understand that life is inevitably suffering. It's hard to be human. It is so hard to be human. And because we live in a society where we're kind of expected to be superhuman, especially as women, we're expected to have it all. We're expected to have a perfect look, a perfect life, a perfect family, a perfect career now. Everything has to be perfect about our lives. Oh my gosh. So we just are obsessed. We're obsessed with trying to perfect, trying to put on a show, and we've lost ourselves along the way.
Resonating. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the leaving thing. I definitely, I've been trying to notice that more, especially with myself. My leaving is like listening to a podcast, or just like always finding a way to stay busy rather than staying in whatever it is that I'm feeling, or like eating.
The addiction to busyness is legitimate.
100%.
And it's normalized. So our culture says, of course you should be busy. You need to be a productive member of society. And look at how we treat people who aren't quote unquote productive. Look at people who have disabilities in ways that they can't show up, like able-bodied people like us do. Look at how we treat them. Look at how we treat the elderly, right? Look at how we treat people who can't be productive. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't want to get old because I'm going to be shunned and stuck in a nursing home. So I better look young, stay fit. And so even trends like the fitness, wellness, health movement can be a tool that we use for our betterment, and it can very quickly be used as a tool for our leaving.
Yeah, especially in LA.
Oh, hands down.
You know what I mean? The addiction to working out, the addiction to being well, and kind of even using it to like separate ourselves from others,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in a certain way. But yeah, the addiction to busyness is real. I was at Year One the other day and I saw someone, and we had just gotten back from our tour in New York and Boston and wherever. I was in St. Louis after or something. So we were gone for like 10 days and I just had landed that morning and I took a nap. And I got to Year One and I was just like out of it. When I saw this person, I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so out of it. I just took a nap. They're like, oh, I wish I could take a nap. I was like,
you can.
Yeah, honestly, I was like, kind of just like pause. Like I felt like I had to defend my nap. You know, I was like, oh, I just got back from tour and, you know, I was doing all this stuff and like, and I was like defending the reason I took a fucking nap because I felt like I was not being productive or staying busy during that time. And I thought it was like such an interesting thing. So I was like, I hope that I never do that to someone. Not that they meant it. You know,
Sure.
they did not mean to.
It's that programming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sure I've said it too.
Yeah. Or you think it. You know what I mean? Especially when I was working my like 9-to-5 job too. Like,
well, it's funny how things like when they speed up and you are experiencing maybe quote unquote success in whatever you're doing, I think like maybe the secret sauce is to take those times to pause and slow down in order, like if you're in it for the long game, I just don't think we can maintain, we're just going to miss the things that are going to be the opportunities for growth. What have you found to be in that stillness, in those moments of just taking rest and silence? Like, have there been thoughts that come up?
Yeah. And it's not even necessarily, because I know we have these conversations constantly about mindfulness and yoga and meditation and slowing things down. I challenge that it's not even necessarily about all of the things that we do and then try to like, okay, so, I'm distracted. So I'm going to now be mindful as I wash my dishes. More so even like, how am I using these tools to run away from something? Like, what am I running away from? Because I see people, I mean, yoga people are just as fucked and egoic as everybody else. It's not like if you meditate now every single day, you're still going to bring your stuff with you. So I'm more interested in, well, when you're feeling anxious and when you're feeling afraid and when you're feeling alone, what do you do then? What do you do to tend to yourself? How do you make sure you're not turning away from yourself? Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, both are important and I totally honor mindfulness. I mean, I teach that. It's great. It's just, let's make sure that we're not compartmentalizing our own spirituality either. That we're not looking at, oh, when I'm on the meditation cushion, then I'm holy and I'm ego free. But then every other part of my life, I get to be this stressed out person who's very mean and rude and hurtful to myself and to other people.
How would you do that? So how would you go about like turning inward and figuring it out? Like if I was to use myself as an example, like, and you know, I'm eating to numb or I'm just like staying busy or, you know, something like that. Like what would I do? Like when I just, and sometimes I don't know if I'm stuffing a feeling down or I'm just like addicted to doing. And I just am like so hungry for like what it is that I'm doing.
Yeah, this is what a lot of people like to call like shadow work, which I think sounds so fancy, but I think of it as just the work, which is a deep inquiry, a deep curiosity as to like, why am I eating right now? Like what's here? Like what's coming up within me that I'm feeling really uncomfortable around? And can I just create a little bit of space, even just like a teaspoon amount of space where I can hold whatever that is? Even if it's just for 5 minutes and then I have to go back to eating because it's too much, you know? So it's about turning in. It's about getting curious. Why is it that when that person made that statement about my nap, I got judgmental of myself in my nap? Like, what is that about? What part of me feels like I'm unworthy of my own self-care? You know, what have I been taught about self-care and about loving myself when I was little that makes me now question whether even just taking a nap is okay for my mental health? You know?
Yeah. It's so much work.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And, you know, it doesn't have to be this big thing, I think is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't have to be, again, like you have to now go off and journal and spend hours, dissecting yourself. But if we can remember any time that we're doing something that feels slightly off, we're reactive in a way that feels slightly off. If we can just take a breath and ask ourselves, like, what's here? What's the invitation here? How can I be aware of what's happening in my body right here, right now? Then we start to open up, and like a crack starts to open, right? Between the reactivity and our, or the what is it? The stimulus and the response. And that's what we're always looking for, is that space.
Yeah.
In terms of people having access to this type of conversation or awareness, we're having these conversations. Thank God podcasts exist, things like that. Books are accessible, but I mean, it's just kind of like a common thing in LA or New York, wherever it is, to have kind of these like conversations about, turning inward and all of that. Like, what is our responsibility, or what is, your hope and your vision for kind of making this more mainstream's the wrong word, but do you know what I'm saying? To make it accessible to more people.
Yeah. Oh, that's
in a
great
digestible way.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I'm curious about making my work digestible, and if that makes sense. I think we have enough Tony Robbins.
Completely.
We have, I think, enough Gabby Bernsteins and Marianne Williamsons to get people in the door. Those people are angels in that they activate something. They start moving people in ways, right? They start saying, maybe I do have freedom in my life. Maybe I'm not a complete victim to circumstance, right? Like those are the gateway drugs. I see
entry level.
Yeah. And that serves. That's a purpose that serves. Me in my work, I used to want to be for everybody. Now I realize I just want to be for a small group of people who are really into going into that depth. And so you're right. In many ways, I don't think my work is necessarily quote unquote accessible for people who aren't interested and willing and able to go there. But if you're interested, if you're willing, then you're able. I'm not some magical enlightened Dalai Lama. Like, I'm a regular girl living in LA who have been doing this work for 10 years, my own internal work, and I'm finding that this is resonating and landing with a lot of people. And let me just go on a slight caveat. Here's what's important about not turning away from ourselves. And I want to make sure that I loop this in because this is really important for me right now. If we turn away from ourselves, we're also turning away from others. We can't show up for others if we're not showing up for ourselves, right? And so let's look at the ways that we as humans have been turning away from each other. Let's look at our country right now with Trump. Let's look at the ways that we're turning away from immigrant children because we don't want to look, because that stuff's uncomfortable. So we'd much rather be in the high vibes, love and light. Oh my God, I'm just going to get my green juice and not even read the news because it's so negative vibes. And like, I just can't even handle that shit. So like, I'm not even going to do with it. Like, let's talk about what we're really doing when we're doing that. If we're turning away from people who need us, and we're not looking because it's too uncomfortable for us, what is that really saying? So we want to be conscientious that this work of like not running away from ourselves, it's not just about ourselves. It's about making sure that we also have the capacity, the space to not turn away from our other human beings that are on this planet with us. And this is something we talked a little bit about in my first episode. And it has to be reiterated that we can't be living in this love and light bubble and expect anything to change. That's not accessible. Let's talk about accessibility. That's not accessible. This high vibe stuff is not accessible to the rest of the world because the rest, like I'm talking specifically like us white spiritual women of LA, like the ways that we surround ourselves in our lives, it's not accessible for the majority of the world. The drinks that we drink, the affordability of living a life that we do, it's not accessible for the rest of the world.
I think too, like the white women of LA who are in that spiritual world, it's like, and I'm just not talking about everyone, but I don't think they want it to be that accessible. It almost feels like a club.
It does.
In certain communities.
Absolutely.
So that's interesting to think about. It's like, why? And also that
it's power.
It's power,
Lindsey,
yeah.
It's power.
What should we do then?
Oh, then we have to start talking about white privilege.
Yeah, let's open it up.
I mean, so, the fundamental systems of our country was developed out of power. Everything's about power dynamics. And this is the best way I know how to think about and look at this stuff. It's like think about the people who came to this country at the very beginning, right? They were predominantly white men and their families who wanted to get away from not being able to, have the rights that they wanted in England. They come over and they decide that they're going to take over this land. Even though this land was already taken, there was already people living on this land, they decided, you know what? We're superior and we're going to push you out and we're going to live here. Okay. So then they were like, okay, now we got to create a sustainable economy. How's that going to work? I know. We'll take a bunch of people from a different country who looks different than us. So now we have that separation of color. We can make that, they are an other because they don't look like me. So it's easier for us when we make people an other to subjugate them, to oppress them, right? So we're going to bring over slaves and we are going to have power over these people. And now they are going to fuel our economy. So our government system, the first systems in this country, our education system, was all developed out of white men holding power. The problem is that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed. It's just become more insidious. So you say, racism is gone now. We live in a post-racial society because look, we voted for Obama as president. But the thing is, if we look at who has access to the systems, who runs the systems, they're predominantly white men. And they have a very exclusive club that you can't join because you have to be white and you have to be a male. We see that? So these systems keep certain groups of people oppressed, and they call it because of their race or because of your gender, because you're not aligning with heteronormativity, because you're not cis, et cetera, et cetera. Cis meaning cisgendered, which means that you're born, you identify yourself as the same gender as the sex that you were born with, right? That's what cisgender means. And so we live in a society where white privilege benefits white people at the expense of everybody else. And so when you're talking about a group of people in LA who are exclusive, it's very accurate because you want to be exclusive. Because if you make it inclusive, then that means you have to share power. And you don't want to share power because it's nice to be white. As a white woman, I've never had to, if a cop comes up, I never have to think, I can get shot right now. I never thought that. I think, oh my gosh, a police. He's here to protect me. He's here to keep me safe, right? So first we have like patriarchy, and that sucks because women have been oppressed for thousands of years. But then we have racism, and white women participate in racism just as every other white person does. White women are not innocent. We are complicit because we also benefit from racism. But it's heartbreaking, especially when we're talking about the wellness industry and the coaching industry, the self-development industry. It's heartbreaking because we say things like women empowerment. We say things like, I don't see color. I see everybody as the same, right? Like, I don't see differences. Like, I'm a good white person. Like, I've had Black friends and I have a Black son and my dad's Black and this person's Black. Like, I can't possibly be participating in what you're talking about. But that's not how that works. You can participate in something simply because of the color of your skin. And so when we're talking about turning away, we also have to be conscientious of that. We can't be spiritual, truly. I believe, and this is my personal opinion, that we can't truly be spiritual if at the same time we're not willing to look at the unconscious biases that we carry against groups of people.
That's profound.
Yeah, I love that. So, but what are we to do besides educate ourselves?
That's a great first place to start. And not just educate yourself like learning about racism as if it's a problem over there.
Right.
Because that's what we were taught in school. We were taught, the civil rights era, Martin Luther King. We were taught about racism. We know that there used to be slaves in this country, but now it's all gone and it's all good, right? So I'm not talking about education as in like, over there, that thing that exists over there that I don't participate in because I'm not a Ku Klux Klan member. So like, I'm not racist. No, education is like looking again and again and again at the ways that you personally participate in privilege, that you personally benefit from the systems that the world is made out of. Look at it. Not because that means Because this is again where the worthiness wound comes in, right? Because this gets scary for people. People are like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I don't have privilege. My life was really fucking hard. Like, I was born in a low class system and I don't have any money and I've had this trauma and I've had this sexual assault and I've had all these bad things happen to me. What are you talking about? I don't benefit from white privilege, or I don't benefit from privilege. And we get very defensive because what we hear when we say something like, you got to look at your privilege, is that you are not worthy. You're not worthy. And that's not what we're saying. What I'm saying is we have to look at how the wind has been at our backs for something that we grew into. So are we to blame for white privilege? Am I personally, Thais Sky, responsible for white privilege? No, I didn't choose to be born this color of skin. Like, I didn't choose to be born woman. Or, okay, maybe if we're talking about like, soul karmic contract things, who knows? Maybe I chose this, but you know what I'm saying. But I do get to now decide to look at the ways that I may participate in it. So that's the first step, is just start to look at the ways that you unconsciously participate. Look at look at the books that you read on your bookshelf. As good spiritual women, we probably have tons of books on our bookshelves. Look at the color of the race of most people that you're reading from. Watch your TV. Notice your favorite characters and what color are they? And then notice how they're portrayed on TV based on their color, right? Just start noticing like the groups of friends that you're with. Like does it have like a good racial diversity or not? Why or why not? That's not to say now go collect Black friends, right? We're just being in the state of just noticing how bubbled we are as white people. We tend to be very much in our little bubble. Look at how, the ways that things were easier because you were white, or because you were a woman, or because you were a man. Look at how things are harder for us as women because we're women and not men. This is so frustrating to have this conversation with men, right? Because, like just the other day, I was walking to my car and a man stopped and I thought he was wanting to get my parking spot, right? And he looks over at me and I look over at him and I thought he was going to say, hey, are you leaving? So I lean in a little bit into the car and he goes, hey, you're cute. What are you doing? And this happens. This happens to us women all the time. This is rape culture. Men don't have to worry about that, right? Like my dad, my boyfriend, my brother, like all of my male people in the world, they don't ever have to worry about walking the dog at 11 o'clock at night because they'll be fine. So it's hard to tell men, actually, like, this is how it is for us. And we've been trying to say that for a long time, and it's very hard for them to see. So it makes sense that it's very hard for us as white people to see the ways that we participate from privilege because it's so hard to see. But I promise it's there. And there are so many abundant resources of women of color, specifically Black women and Indigenous women who are doing this work, who are showing all of the ways that racism is still very much alive and the ways that white women in particular are like really participating in that. So like Layla Saad and Rachel Cargill are two women that come up, right off the top of my head. They're so active on Instagram. They are constantly talking about white supremacy and white privilege and the ways that we can do better as white women. So like go there, start following women of color who are talking about this stuff. Start noticing what they're saying and really see if you can listen. These are the same tools that we can use when we're doing our own work. For example, educate yourself. Okay, yeah, you can educate yourself on all the crystals that you want, but that's not going to do you any good. Educate yourself on how you can use those crystals in your actual life, right? There's a difference between learning how to make a green smoothie and actually making a green smoothie. It's the same thing. Learn how it applies in your life. And then if you're doing meditating, if you're doing yoga, you really want to be in a space of curiosity. You want to be listening rather than immediately going and teaching yoga, right? Immediately telling the yoga teacher, I know what's better. We want to be in a place of being a student. So it's the same thing here. It's the same work, internal, external. This is how we don't turn away from ourselves and each other.
We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from our sponsor, Hum Nutrition.
Guys, I had a real big revelation.
What?
I was just making my smoothies recently and I was putting so many different types of powders in and I was like, and one of them was Nutrition because I use their raw beauty powder and I've used it forever. But then I actually read the ingredients and I don't need anything else but
You were
that.
doubling up.
I was tripling up. It has all the superfoods. It has things like barley grass, wheatgrass, spirulina. Like I was putting extra spirulina even though that's already in there.
Yeah.
It has adaptogens in it like astragalus, which is great for hormone health. Rhodiola, which is also great for your thyroid. So there was like tons of stuff in there that like I was doubling up on, but I didn't realize that it was like a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
Guys, the raw beauty powder is all you need and it's freaking delicious. You can have it in a shake.
So good.
You can have it in water. It's so bomb.
And I've actually been baking with it.
Oh, I love that. What'd you
Yeah,
bake?
you can do like raw, almost like energy balls, like you would
Cool.
make with, it's kind of your preference, but cashew butter,
dates.
seeds, dates, and then mix in raw beauty powder. I like the mint.
I love the mint.
chip.
The tahini vanilla is bomb too.
Yeah.
That was really good.
So good. They also just came out with their collagen pop. So you get to upgrade your water, transform your skin. It really does work. It has collagen, vitamin C, and we just love it. It's easy. You put it in your purse, break it up and put it in your
had it
water.
when we were in Boston and New York. And I would just put it in my water to drink in the morning just to make sure I would get my collagen, because any other way is just the powder sometimes is like, you're on a flight and you can't put the powder in the thing. It just like was easy. I had them in my purse, dropped them in my water. My water tastes delicious. It was easy.
And there's something about having a sparkly drink that makes it, for me, easier to digest or like easier to drink.
Yep.
That's what I mean. And it creates like this rose water. It kind of tastes like rose water lemon beauty tonic. I love it.
Yep.
humnutrition.com, HUM nutrition.com. Use our code almost30nation for 15% off your first order. So that's humnutrition.com. Almost30nation is the code for 15% off. This episode is also brought to you by Chosen Foods. Thanks so much to Chosen Foods for supporting the Almost 30 podcast and our obsession with avocados. You probably know Chosen Foods because they started the avocado oil craze. This is a San Diego-based food company, and they offer a variety of healthy fats and clean label products like avocado oil mayo and avocado oil-based salad dressings. They're so delicious. I'm currently obsessed with their wasabi avocado oil mayo. It is delicious and finding its way onto everything that I've been eating. But what I didn't know is that, so when you normally like shop for oils, I'm in the grocery store, down the oil section, there's so many options. I'm sure all of you are just as confused as I am. Which one do you choose? Coconut oil, olive oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, extra virgin this, something that. And what I didn't know is that most oils have a lower smoke point of about 350 degrees, like coconut oil and olive oil. But avocado oil has a 500 degree smoke point. So you can use it for baking, sauteing, roasting, you name it. And you don't have to worry about it giving off toxins past a certain smoke point because you're most likely not cooking past 500 degrees. I love this brand. I trust them. These are natural, whole foods, real ingredients, sustainable. I'm obsessed with them. You can go to chosenfoods.com/almost30 and use our promo code almost30 at checkout to get 50% off your entire order of $10 or more. So that's chosenfoods.com/almost30. Use our code almost30 to get 50% off your entire order at checkout.
What do you say to the argument, and this isn't an argument or a feeling that I have, but I can imagine that in LA, someone would say this, is that focusing on the negative brings more negative, or focusing on that brings more of that?
I love that argument.
Yeah. What do you say to that?
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to believe this. So maybe I should have started off with this. Like, I used to believe all of this. I used to believe in manifesting. I used to believe in like being a good white spiritual woman. There's so many photos I have of my malas and all of my things. Like, I'm a good white woman, okay, people? It's like, I really participated in the spiritual world. I was a yoga teacher. Like, I did so good. So I just want to say that I'm sharing all of this because I've been through it. So I'm not a preacher. I'm not on some high horse. I'm not here being like, I'm all evolved. Like, follow me. No. I'm just sharing my mistakes and my journey and my path. And so I used to believe that, like, I don't want to surround myself with anything negative, with the haters, with the bad news, because then I'm going to feel shitty, right? Instead, the way I look at it now is, if you don't look at a wound, like if you get a cut on your leg and it's a pretty big gash and you don't look at it and you don't tend to it and you don't get it taken care of, it's going to get worse. It's going to fester. And eventually it's going to become so much worse. You're going to have to probably cut off that leg, right? So it's not that we are now obsessing with only looking at the bad stuff. Rather, it's the invitation is, if you want to have a clean closet, you have to clean your closet. If you want to have your life be in congruency, you have to look at the ways that it's not. This is the epitome of shadow work and looking at the shadows of our society. If we want to have the ability to stay with all of who we are and not be afraid of a part of ourselves, we have to develop that muscle by looking at the things that are uncomfortable to look at. That's how you develop resiliency. That's how you develop strength. You develop strength by going through the dark. I always say, like, the light saved me from drowning. And by light, I mean like the light tools, the meditation and the yoga. They saved me from drowning. When I found spirituality, I was at the throes of my binge eating. I was so miserable. I was so alone. I was so isolated. I was dying, right? Soul dying. And I found the light and it saved me from drowning. But it was the dark that taught me how to swim. It was the dark that taught me how to navigate the complex waters of being human. We can't push away any part of ourselves and expect wholeness. So we can't push away any part of our society and expect a congruent place to live. And so if you're a true change maker, if you believe that you're wanting to make the world a better place and you're not looking at the faults and the wounds and the things that are broken, how do you expect yourself to build a really strong foundation?
So after we are going in and kind of seeing where we are individually upholding like these
systemic oppression.
Thank you, oppression. I have this like feeling of like, maybe this is worthiness wound. Am I worthy of like bringing up a conversation about this? Because I'm a privileged white girl, like even just like we have such a beautiful group and people have been so vocal. And I just like, it's so important. And sometimes I just feel like, well, I'm a privileged white girl. Like where do I even begin?
I think
to contribute to the conversation.
I think that's where a lot of people are. So I just want to name that.
Yeah.
But that's where a lot of people are. And I also want to name that being silent is in many ways being complicit.
Of course.
Right. But I just want to name that too. I know you know that, but like, let's also add that too. So I can honor the humanity of all of us struggling so hard to find ways to grapple with these really big, complex conversations. And at the same time, the invitation is to grapple. It's to go in because not going in has a cost.
Yeah.
So, I wish I had the answer. I wish I could say, well, this is how you start or this is what you do. Again, there's so many resources available with, people who are doing this work. But for me personally, how I started is by just starting. I just started. I just said it. And then I said it again. And you start getting stronger in that. And you start learning. Because as we do, we learn. Yeah. So we learn faster. But this idea that like you're just a white privileged woman, you are a privileged white woman, and privilege comes responsibility. Like I would love for white men, white CEOs, who are running these big companies to be engaging in this conversation. I would love that more than anything as a woman. Why do I fucking have to do all the work? Like I would love for them to take a moment and be like, you know what? I think that there's still sexist and racist things going on in this company. And like, I'm going to say that there's something going on and I don't know much, but like, I'm going to start hiring people and we're going to start making shit better here for all of you all. I would love that. Right? So it's not that he's now a savior. It's not like he's stepping in and being like, I'm going to save you women. Like I'm going to now personally mentor women so they can feel more confident. We're not talking about the saviorism of needing to save anybody. No one needs to be saved. What we're doing is we're acknowledging, listen, I have privilege that I didn't ask for, but here I am. I have it. And that means I have a responsibility now to use that privilege, to use it to the benefit of other people. And so you two, you have a whole community. And so you have a responsibility, not just as leaders, but as spiritual white women, to be having these conversations. What that looks like and how that looks like is completely up to you and how comfortable you are. And you'll get more and more comfortable with it. But we have to remember that at the end of the day, ignoring it, being silent about it is just as bad. It's just as bad. It's turning away from ourselves. It's saying, I'm so afraid of my own unworthiness that I'm not willing to take a stand for another human life. And listen, we've all been there. We've all been there. But then there's a cognitive dissonance there because you can't technically be a nice white woman if you're simultaneously, oppressing other people. And so a lot of times what we do is then we don't look at how we oppress, right? But the invitation is actually, no, please look, get uncomfortable, feel the shame, feel that shame, because shame doesn't kill anybody. You know what I mean? It's just a feeling. It's just a feeling that we can all navigate. And the more that you learn how to navigate these feelings without making it mean anything about you, the more you can then hold positive emotions too, right? Like the more you can hold a container for like the yuckier emotions, the more you're going to be able to actually experience tremendous amount of freedom and happiness.
Yeah, that's interesting. Being able to kind of recognize and hold the shame without having it be personal.
Yes.
Because I think so many people get caught up because they take it personally.
Yes.
So the shame would be around,
oh my gosh, I'm a bad person.
Okay.
I'm racist.
Yeah. Or like I'm shameful that I have white privilege.
Yes. Or I'm shameful that I've participated in this all my life and I never knew. I thought we were doing good as liberal people. Turns out liberal people are negatively contributing to our systemic oppression, particularly racism. So it's shameful, right? Because you've carrying this idea of who you are your entire life, and now suddenly this chick on your phone, Thais, I don't even know who this person is telling me I'm racist. Like, whoa, that's uncomfortable. And so we immediately feel this like burning shame. Like, oh my gosh, is she right? That's awful. I can't tolerate this feeling. I make it personal. I make it mean all these things about me. So I'm just gonna turn off. I'm gonna turn away. And the thing is, again, feelings are just feelings. This is something I teach and I'm very committed to teaching. It's about emotions and emotional resiliency, because I feel like we live in a very emotionally illiterate culture and we do not know how to navigate our emotions. And then as women, we're criticized for being emotional. You're so emotional, as if that's a bad thing. Like, hello, that's amazing. It means that we're intuitive. It means that we're in flow. But we've been taught like, oh, that's a bad thing. We have to be in our logic. Right? We live in a very hyper masculine society where the logic rules. Like, how do you make a decision? You make your pros and cons list. Like, everything's about like the logic. There's no space for emotions because emotions are erratic. And so because we're never taught how to be with our emotions, we don't know how to navigate our emotions. Just like with the whole, if I don't look at negativity, then, everything will be fine. But actually what happens when you don't look at negativity is that you can't actually deal with it. And that's heartbreaking. That we're creating in our spiritual practices a whole generation of women who are terrified of looking at anything that's uncomfortable. That terrifies me, because our world is uncomfortable, because our world is suffering, because there is suffering. And if we don't know how to hold our own pain, how the hell are we supposed to hold the pain for anybody else? But anyway, emotions don't kill us. We can hold them. That we do have the capacity to do that. And so particularly with shame, because that's an inevitable part of waking up to our white privilege, is shame. And so when we feel shame, the invitation, I always say invitation, right? Because I don't like to tell people what to do, but the offering is, can I just let this emotion run through my body? Can I feel what it feels like in my body? And can I know that this will pass? This isn't permanent. This doesn't mean anything about me. This is just an emotion. It's data, not direction. It's just here to tell me something. It's telling me that I've not been looking at this for a very long time, probably my entire life, right?
I do feel like I'm not speaking, I guess, for our girls, but maybe from my understanding of the messages that we've been sharing within our audience and sort of the responses that we've been receiving and the messages that have been transmuting to them that they are applying to their lives. I feel like people are just starting to wake up to working on themselves. And maybe I'm assuming that of our Almost 30 Nation is now using these tools to apply to their life to be better, to feel more like themselves,
Absolutely.
To be happier. So I could see like feeling like, okay, so I have these things and it's almost like, do people need to feel good and whole and like work on their shadow before they take, not that I'm saying that no one should be taking this on. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just like, do people feel that way? That they're like, I have so much to deal with on my own, not even white people, but other races of people probably feel like they have so much to deal with on their own that it's hard to like turn around and see everyone else.
Hands down. Absolutely. And that is exactly why we don't look.
Yeah.
We're so in our own shit that we can't even fathom looking at other people's stuff. And I don't also want to say that we have to do our own work exclusively before we can do the work of other people, because that's also very harmful. It's kind of like there's a phrase that I think gets tossed around a lot. Is like, you can't love other people until you love yourself. And that sounds really nice sometimes, you know, so that sounds really nice. But actually, I haven't found that to be the case. In fact, I've often found that like it's by people loving me when I felt the most unlovable that helped me find my own love for myself. So it's more like a circle. It's both can be true.
It can help you see the love in yourself.
Exactly. So you can both be loved and, you know, do the work of loving yourself and use that as a beautiful play off of each other. And so I think it's the same thing here. Instead of looking at, oh my gosh, so much pain in the world I can't handle, or oh my gosh, so much pain in myself I can't handle. It's like, how can we use the tools that we're applying in our own lives to better ourselves? How can we make sure that we're also using those tools to extend outwards, to see beyond our noses, to make sure that our lives isn't just about ourselves? Because it's very addicting to just be constantly obsessed with ourselves and our own problems. And it's naive to think that our problems are going to go away, right? That like at some point in the future, my life is going to be so perfect and I'm going to like have everything that I want. And then I can deal with everybody else's problems. That's naive. It doesn't work that way. Sorry to burst anyone's bubble, but you know, we get the opportunity to really use these tools for both ourselves and others. Now, you as an individual listening to this get to decide to what extent and what that looks like. If you are deep in your addiction right now, let's say you're a recovering alcoholic and you're deep in your process, then maybe right now, you need to focus on like getting your stuff together a little bit here. You know, like your mental health is important, and I don't want us to be martyrs either. Self-care is critical. And if you've been out of recovery and you're like, or if you're out of your own hellhole, right? Like if you're feeling recovered and you're feeling more grounded and you're feeling like you're able to start putting your life back together, then it's an opportunity for you to start looking at the world outside of your own nose. That's not right. Nose? Out of your own what?
Out of your own tits.
There we go. Well,
that's what I say.
That's what we'll say. That's what we'll say. Because I don't want us to annihilate ourselves. Remember, this is where we started. Yeah. Like, I don't want us to be using this new knowledge of white privilege and racism for us to now then feel even worse about ourselves. Like, oh, now here's another thing that I'm a problem. And then, right, it activates our worthiness wound. And then we go into our spiral of like, oh, I'm such a bad person. Like, even this is apparently my fault, right? We don't want to do that. And wherever we are doing that, we want to honor that. But it's just, I don't want us to be using our pain as an excuse, but rather as a catalyst.
We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from our sponsor, Skinny Dipped Almonds. We are so proud to have them as our newest sponsor, as this is a female-owned and operated company. It was founded by a mother-daughter and her two best friends. And we are just inspired because they wanted to spend more time with one another. After losing a dear friend, they realized that they were all so scattered and so busy, they didn't really make the time for family and connection. So they decided to start a business together. And thus, Skinny Dipped was born. Skinny Dipped is changing the way we do snacking. It is healthy, so you're getting the protein, the fiber, and the nutrients you need for energy, This particularly speaks to me. I love to have a handful before class, before I work out. It's really helped my energy and blood sugar stability too. I'm full for longer. This product is unique in that these nuts have a thin layer of artisan dark chocolate and then like dusted, a little whisper of either a cacao powder, peanut butter powder, raspberry, espresso. The flavors are so good. Organic. You can trust this brand and their ingredients. We're just so excited to share them with you. So you can go to skinnydipped.com and you can use our code almost30, ALMOST30 for 20% off your first order. And what's so great is that they have different sizes. So they have the mini packs. They have these like long sleeves that are great for on the go to keep just kind of in the little drawer in your refrigerator to snag for an after dinner snack or a pre-workout snack, whenever you want. And they also have bigger pouches. So you have options across the board. We love this brand, skinnydipped.com, code almost30 for 20% off. This episode is also brought to you by Spring.
My favorite. The only app I used to shop.
Honestly, it's so easy. And you know me, don't like to shop. And this makes it so easy.
Plus, if you go to Spring and you get the app or you go to shopspring.com, you can use our code almost30tour for 20% off. So I know I brought the call to action early on, but seriously, if you're already getting a deal on brands like Free People, Urban Outfitters, Alexander Wang, Gucci, and you get 20% off using our code, that's crazy.
That's crazy. And you get 4% cash back.
Yep.
And it kind of adds up over time.
I just got $150 back.
I love a little cash back action lately. I'm like, I'm kind of like earning money and I don't know it or I forget about it. And then all of a sudden I have it and I'm happy.
Yeah. Like $150 went back in my account after shopping.
So fucking good. So as Krista mentioned, they have some amazing brands, most likely your brand that you love, over 1,500 brands, men's, women's, lifestyle, and beauty. And so it's really easy to use. If you download the app, you can just shop straight from there and you can take a little style quiz. They cater to your style. And this is my favorite quiz I've taken. It's gotten it right.
Yeah, 100%.
Sometimes like I take little quizzes and it's like, no, that's not me.
Yeah,
No, but they got it right. And they have athleisure and athletic apparel that we love. And you might find us on the app right now. Curated activewear with Krista and Lindsey from the Almost 30 podcast. But you guys know we love athleisure. So check out those brands as well. Again, shopspring.com. Use our code almost30tour for 20% off.
I guess I'm just scared almost to fuck up. And like, maybe that's a shame thing.
Of course you are.
But I'm like,
we all are.
You know, and it's like really to be thinking about it. It's part of our evolution. And, you know, within our evolution, talking about suicide, mental health, rape, you know, all of those things we've evolved and continually talked about and been open to talking about. So it's like, this is part of it. And starting the conversation with you before, having the conversation in previous conversations and kind of talking about it more so now, it's like part of how we're evolving as a community. So that's kind of like where I see the conversation going with us, is really making sure to weave it into the conversations that we're having with the guests that we're having. We have been working on it for the past months now. So it hasn't been like a new topic to us internally and our team. At Almost 30, we talk about it every day. We've been talking about it every day for the past couple months now. And it's kind of frustrating that it has the situations or the guests that we've been wanting to come on to have these conversations haven't come to fruition. So that's really frustrating, to be honest, is that I'm kind of getting emotional about it because we care about it so much and we want to do right by our audience and we want to make sure that they are exposed to these conversations. So it's hard that we haven't had them yet, but I know they're coming. And I know the right ones will come when they do.
Yeah. Well, and this is something that I contributed in the conversation in the Facebook group. You know, it's like we want to be careful when we're starting to, as leaders, you know, we're like, okay, for me, let's talk personally. For me, I'm like, I had a podcast before the one I have now, and they were predominantly white guests. And when I started waking up to my white privilege and to whiteness and to how white the spiritual community is, out of a decision, not because there aren't people of color in the spiritual communities, but because of, we've isolated ourselves. So as I started waking up to this, I was like, oh my gosh, like my podcast is contributing to the problem. Like I need to fix this right now. The danger is it runs the risk of tokenizing people of color, right? Like bringing people of color on just to add check marks to our diversity boxes, just to say, oh, I'm diverse. I'm a good person. Look, I'm not racist. Check. Right? I'm not saying that's what you two are doing at all, but I'm just saying for me, that was the risk that I was running because I noticed that I was collecting people of color in my communities as M&Ms, as a way of being like, oh my God, now I get to be this good white person because I have all these like people of color in my circle. And I had to take a radical step back and really look at myself. And what I've come to recognize is that the more I do my own work of understanding my privilege, understanding how my teachings were perpetuating white privilege, how my teachings were inaccessible to every woman and they were only from a white lens, right? The more I started to understand, the more people of color naturally started to feel safe in coming into my community. And they started to feel safe and say yes to being podcast guests. And they started to want to contribute to that conversation. So wherever I see any area, community groups where I'm not seeing a lot of people of color, the only thing that tells me is that they don't feel safe. Because if they felt safe in that space, they would be there. Safe meaning that they feel like they're being seen. So let's talk about colorblindness for a minute, because that's something that we hear a lot. Like, I don't see color. I don't know why this is such a big deal. You're only inviting people who are really good, guests or whatever. Like, what does it matter what race they are? But when we say something like that, it's very equivalent to a man saying, I don't see gender when they look at me. I'm like, excuse you? Like, my gender has defined my life. Like, being a woman has defined me. My womb, right? Like this stuff, my breasts, my figure has defined me, and my life is judged based on that. Like, people will say, you're a woman, and they will make certain decisions about who I am based on that. So if somebody says, oh, I don't see gender, then I'm like, then you don't actually see me. You don't actually see the experience of my life. And so I'm not going to feel safe with you because I don't feel like you're actually witnessing me. It's the same thing when we say that to a person of color. When we say, oh, I don't see black or white, I'm colorblind. Well, then what you're really saying is their lived experience as a black person in our society is not important to you. And so they won't feel safe. They won't feel safe in sharing their fullest expression because you're not honoring their lived experience, right? So it's like we want to be really conscientious of how to create that safe space. And we do that. The best way that we can do that is by first dropping these stories about colorblindness and really looking at the uncomfortable truths that is in the back of our heads about what we believe about people of color, about Black people, about Muslims, about immigrants. What do we really believe? And it's dirty. It's airing out our dirty laundry, it's cleaning out that closet. But hey, how can we step into wholeness if we're not looking at all of who we are?
Yeah. I don't think anything, it's like, I'm literally just so wrapped up in this and doing this. It's like, I don't even look at any of my friends, what they're doing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't even look at myself. I don't look at what anyone else is doing. The people that we have are people that have pitched us, have been directly connected to us. It's
sure.
I haven't even had a chance to look at the world and be what conversations are happening, what should be happening.
And that's most people.
Yeah.
Honestly, you're just a representation of most people. I mean, look, also, Black people make up 12% of our population. So, I think white Americans, I think they make up something like 55% or 60% of our population. So just by those numbers alone, of course. And then if I look, when I think about how I grew up and the neighborhood that I grew up and my neighbors, it's we are comfortable in white only spaces and only seeing whiteness because that's all we've seen. It's all we've known as, upper middle class white people. And the minute you start understanding that, then you have a real choice. Do you want to continue that? Or is it time for, to do something differently? Mm-hmm. And for me personally, I was like, oh, I can't run a business this way anymore. Mm-hmm. This is what we talked about last time. I can't do this anymore. I can't run a business where I'm only teaching about these white principles. Mm-hmm. I can't uphold this system while also talking about women's empowerment. Mm-hmm. I can't do it anymore. And so I'm a fast mover. I mean, that's just who I am. I move really fast, and I just made that shit happen really fast, and I dove in and I made it happen really fast. I don't expect anybody else to move in the speed of which I did, but we do have to move. And that's what both of you are doing now. You are moving. You are making it happen. You're opening up the space. You're educating yourselves. And this is important work. It's important. It's reverence. It's reverence, right? That's how we want to be approaching this. Not willy-nilly. This is not a conversation about lip gloss. This is not a conversation about what is the best smoothie to make. This is people's lives at stake. And so I love that you're worried. I love that you're scared, because it means that you understand the weight, the consequence, the responsibility that is here. I think that's very important, to be not willy-nilly about this stuff, but use that fear to be grounded, to be thoughtful, and to keep moving forward.
Mm. Just a lot of pressure.
Well, I'm also thinking about, I'm hearing you, you just have to do, and you have to start those conversations and be doing that work. And then is there, on the side of, women of color, if they have been, in their experience, seen white women as just privileged and aloof and in their own heads and, not really paying attention to what's really going on. Our responsibility is to, kind of break down what has been upheld as oppressive. But is there work on that side that would kind of create a full circle? I don't know how to describe this, just kind of like an energy exchange where it does become a really fluid conversation. Because right now I know we have a lot of work to do, right? And I'm not expecting other people to do that work equally, but do you understand do you hear what I'm saying?
No, I really don't.
Okay. I guess, if what you're saying is that we need to do this work, and by doing this work, eventually, women of color will feel comfortable, sitting down and having conversations and feel safe.
Sure.
And
listen, I just also want to add that perfectionism is a real bitch, right? So I'm not saying you have to be these perfect, quote unquote, allies, and only then, right? Life is a lot more fluid than that. I'm sure there are plenty of people of color who'd be willing to be in a space where they know what they're getting themselves into, and they know that they're talking, to a group of white women who are, ignorant. I mean, there's the full spectrum. So I don't want to speak up for people of color or their experience or what they want or what they need. I'm simply speaking for myself in that, we have to just start the conversations, and internally and externally. Mm-hmm. And however way that shakes out is how it will shake out. I don't think that answered your question.
No, it did in a way.
Okay. Yeah. Just as there are women who hate women because of patriarchy, there are Black women who hate Black people because of racism. We've all been indoctrinated by the same juice. We've all drank the same goddamn Kool-Aid since birth, right? Mm-hmm. So how people respond to racism and sexism is none of my business. So how people of color respond to racism, whether it's to pretend like it doesn't exist, to uphold it, to say it doesn't matter, that is on them. That is not on me. My responsibility is to look at how I'm upholding systemic oppression. Yeah.
That answers the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How are you feeling about this? This is a heavy topic.
Mm-hmm. It's just, I guess it's, I think about it all the time. I think about it a lot. And I just want to do right by our audience. So that's why I think about it. And I just feel like, and it's a good thing, and I'm willing to take it on, and I'm willing to take it on times 100. But it's a lot of pressure to be a leader of a community in this way.
What's the tears? Like, what are you feeling?
I've been thinking about it a lot.
Yeah.
I think about it all the time. I talk about it all the time.
What's the fear?
I don't have a fear. It's like, I guess I have a fear of like messing it up, or like not being successful at it, or like negative repercussions of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to do like, it's quite a fucking step to do, like, again, have a podcast like, this is what you eat to have a flat tummy. And then have a podcast that's like, hey, like, let's break down patriarchy. And like, this is why we're living in a system that like oppresses Black people on a continuous basis. Like, that is fucking hard.
Yeah.
And it's like, no one's really doing it in our way. And it's hard for me to have a conversation that's like, I like to remain positive, and I like to remain funny and fun. And I like to also feel comfortable being myself. And that's one of the things that I feel like is most important in my messaging, is for people to feel comfortable being themselves. So it's like, it's just a lot. Like,
well, I think the gift that you both can offer is to do this imperfectly and not die. And then people are going to start to recognize that they can do it too. And they too won't die. Because that's how it sometimes feels. It feels like an ego death. Like, we're going to like, oh my God, the negative.
Yeah,
right,
I was just about to say, like, my ego is totally triggered. Like, when thinking about, we are in the public eye in a way. We have there's a community.
But this is what needs to be seen.
I know.
People need to see this.
Yeah.
Because people are so scared of having real conversations because of this exact fear. But both of you have the tools, have the support. You know how to make this happen. And so doing it imperfectly is a gift. I don't want you to wait until some perfect moment in time to broach these conversations. I want y'all to do it imperfectly, and you will mess up. And then guess what? You will apologize and you will move forward, because that's it. That's what happens.
Yeah.
We make a mistake. We say something. I mean, I'm constantly saying things. Didn't
I feel like people are so unforgiving nowadays, though. Like, you can't fucking say shit. But it's
kind of on them. And like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like you're saying, it's only our business how we interpret, racism and oppression, and it's our job. I honestly think, now that I think about it, we do take it personally in the moment. Make no mistake. Of course,
and you are allowed to do that. You are allowed to do that. You are allowed to have all of the feelings, all of them. And when you mess up, you say, I'm sorry. I didn't know better. I'm committed to doing better. You own it. You own the apology. And then you move forward. And now you will know better and do better. So, people are unforgiving no matter what. People are having opinions no matter what. They're having opinions about you not saying anything. They're going to have opinions about you saying anything. You're going to lose people. You're going to get pushback. You're going to get people that are going to be so infuriated at you because they want to stay in their bubble. God bless them. God bless America. But we no longer have that excuse, not excuse, what I'm trying to say. We no longer have that privilege, because we're living in a country where people are being locked in cages. This is way beyond us. It's way beyond us. So we've got to be very gentle with our little fragile ego, because he was going to demand a lot of attention. And then we've got to keep moving forward. And what you'll find is that you won't die. You'll get stronger. You'll get more confident. You'll be able to see people. You'll be able to hold more space for yourself. It's the most incredible, incredible journey. The awakening journey, this awakening to my whiteness, is akin to me of awakening to spirituality, where I've fallen more in love with myself and fallen more in love with life the more I've allowed in these uncomfortable conversations, because I'm no longer running away. I'm no longer living in misalignment. I'm no longer ignoring. I'm looking and I'm learning as quickly as possible. Yeah. So do it imperfectly. Do it imperfectly. It's beautiful for people to see that. You know, there is a tremendous responsibility. You're allowed to be scared. And there's a really amazing gift that you're offering your community. And of course, the worthiness one will come up, and then y'all will call me and I'll be over here and be like, yes, let me tell you about the worthiness wound, because that's a real bitch sometimes. Yeah. But it's just an emotional wound. Again, it does not have to run our lives.
Yeah.
Insert joke here.
I know.
Something funny.
Yeah, I think also just, last few things, but it's like that fear of being seen for what I thought for my entire life was, acceptable. Like I'm just thinking about my upbringing, and maybe I obviously was very privileged, and just like thinking about maybe family that would perpetuate oppression, not in a way that was what they knew to be conscious, but
sure,
they just did.
Yeah. And
like to be kind of like seen as that feels like I'm like naked, running around,
Yeah.
So, but I love the idea of you falling more and more in love with yourself, because I do like it is this uncomfortable, like, oh God, that's the part of me that's like really ugly, but I've never talked about it. And I'm sure all of my friends that I grew up with, we could have a conversation now about, maybe, things that parents would say on the regular basis that was just like kind of things. Yeah. And we never really thought anything about it. But like, if I really go back and dig deep, I mean,
it's there. Yeah. It's there for all of us. It's the little comments that our dad made, little things that was said that we laughed off, and everyone has it. Everyone has it. Yeah. And, the next thing, I guess, after you start to educate yourself is to start having these conversations. You don't have to have, for those of you listening, you don't have to have a platform with 5,000, Facebook people in order for you to be having these conversations. In fact, it's actually more monumental, I think, to be having these conversations with your friends, to literally have a sit down dinner with a bunch of your friends and be like, so let's talk about this, and do it messily, and it's uncomfortable. But like next time your dad says something that's like, Dad, I think that's racist. That's not okay to say anymore, at least not in front of me. And that's it. You don't have to bitch out. You don't have to like make it some whole thing. We're not talking about removing family members unless, you feel like you need to. But, it's like, let's have these conversations. Let's have them more often. Let's be talking about these things. And you're going to start to notice the patterns that white people tend to do, when they don't want to talk about these things. And you're going to start getting more familiar. So then when it happens virtually online, you know how to navigate it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's good. It's good to be talking about this because you're getting practice, first off. Second off, you're influencing your community, the people in your life. And that's everything. That's everything. That's being in alignment.
Totes.
It does feel like that. Thais, Sky.
Oof.
You're the best.
Well,
thank you.
This is wild. It's wild that this is the world that we live in. It's wild that this is the world that we've inherited. And now we get to decide what type of ancestors we want to be. We get to decide what legacy we want to leave. Beyond just the Facebook, beyond just the podcast, beyond just this moment right here, right now. Where do we want, what do we want our children and our grandchildren to know about what we stood for and how we stood up for that? And if that's not the greatest spiritual practice, then I don't know what is,
I do.
So thank you for having me and for being open for this conversation. I'm really excited about where you two continue to take the conversation. I know that it will feel messy and uncomfortable, and it will also be very powerful. And I think your community is very lucky to have both of you being willing to have this, because I know that a lot of people aren't.
Thank you. Where can people find you?
Oh, well, speaking of social media.
Yeah.
Oh, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. I am Thais Sky. You can find me on my website, thaissky.com. All of the places.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys, for listening. We love you so much. We'll see you next week.
Hello, guys. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Had a little moment there. No shame.
Yeah. Well,
I just want to do right by everyone that listens, and I take the relationship we have with you guys very seriously. And I take the relationship I have with the people that we have on and the people that we will have on very seriously too. May not seem like it, but I do. Okay. Really fast. I want to read a review that I love from one of our amazing listeners. So we are reading reviews from you babes because it makes our life so good. We've gotten like 500 or so in the past month. We're at like 1,200 or something like that. So it's true.
I know.
It's amazing.
It's crazy.
Okay. The girl talk I've always wanted. First off, thank you from the bottom of my heart to Krista and Lindsey for creating this podcast in the Facebook group. I love when they say something about the Facebook group. I feel like this podcast has been a wonderful getaway for what really sets my soul on fire. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll buy a lot of limes, lube, and supplements. That's so fucking funny. I have gotten to know myself so much better and have had a million aha moments. So many topics have been presented that I wanted to know more about or never knew I needed. Their tour stop in Seattle was amazing. They connected with everyone so genuinely and were giving with their time, words, and hugs. Love you forever. Ashlak.
Oh, love you forever.
So good seeing you, honey.
We love you guys on tour. Man. All right. Thank you so much for listening. This is an important conversation that is just the beginning. And we appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability and you sharing your experience. We know that everyone's coming from a place of love and doing their best with what they know. So we are going to continue to learn and share with you. And again, if you love this podcast, share it with someone that you love. Spread the love. And we will see you guys next week.
See you soon. Love you. Bye.